Hi, I'm Thomas the Human Bard, and this is a D&D show where I try to help out dungeon masters looking for direction in their campaign and story design. Welcome to Inspiration. Welcome to Inspiration with Thomas the Human Bard. I am Thomas the Human Bard. On this show, I will take questions from DMs who've hit a creative dead end with what to do next in their D&D games and pitch a few ideas for where they can take their stories. I will also give some general tips and tricks that I use to keep my D&D games interesting and fresh for my players. Of course, up front, I want to say, as sarcastically as I can, that I am in fact the best DM in the world, the only one above reproach, and everything that I say is 100% accurate. If you don't follow my suggestions to the letter, I will pursue legal action. Of course, this is the internet, so many of you will have different ideas or suggestions for me on how I can improve as a DM, and I will not be taking any of those. That's not how the show works. I give you the advice, and you should never post your own interesting story hooks or pitches in the comment section below. With that out of the way, let's roll initiative and get this party started. By the way, if you don't like D&D puns, this is your only opportunity to exit this bus before we start moving. Let's go! All right, our question this episode comes from Roland the Chef. Roland the Chef asks, I am running the first session of a brand new campaign. I had the idea for characters to all wake up in individual cells with no memory of how they got there. They each have a unique key around their neck. A voice comes to them saying, "The time has come, enter the arena," and a portal appears in the wall of each of their cells, taking them to an arena. I really want to jump straight into the action, but I don't want anyone to die in the first section. I also don't know exactly what entity should have brought them all together. I have this image in my head, I just don't know where to go next with it. Great, thank you for the question, Roland. I love the idea. I think this is a great cold open for a session, especially like a first session. Normally, you've got you all meet in a tavern, but we're just cutting past that. We're doing an in medias res storytelling. We're just starting off in the middle. Something's happened, and we are moving on from here. My first advice, I would say, is to flesh out the surrounding details a bit for at least your own personal benefit. What I mean by that is you should know the answers to the questions: who brought them here, how did they do it, and why, even if your players don't need to know that information yet. They can be kind of vague answers. You might have not every single perfect detail of those fleshed out, but you should probably know, because you can never predict how quickly your players will just jump over entire plot lines, entire plot hooks, entire sections of what you had planned and cut right to the chase on something that you thought wouldn't matter for a few sessions. And when you feel unprepared in that moment, it can be scary. So have at least an idea of who it is, why they did it, and how they did it. As an example, I once had a campaign that started with everyone waking up on a ship out at sea. They had been captured by Kuo-toa, who were taking them to offer them to their god. So they each had fallen asleep in a port town that I had described as where we would be beginning the campaign. And what I had planned is that the Kuo-toa had come in the night and had either drugged or magically caused them not to awaken. And they'd actually been doing this frequently over the past few months. And this seaside town didn't know what was going on. There was a rash of kidnappings, people disappearing, and this is what had been going on. And our players are the ones it happens to at the start of the campaign. They get to, they could have gone back there later to figure out more about why that was happening, but they ended up crashing the ship, killing all the Kuo-toa on it, and just running onto some random island. They worked very quickly. So I had to change up the plans a little bit. But I knew how they'd gotten there and why, so that when somebody said, well, wait a minute, I'm an elf, I shouldn't have been able to, if they cast sleep on me to magically bring me here, I that doesn't work on me. I had an answer for why it had worked. So I would put something like that in there. Keep something in mind of, how did this happen? If someone in your party's an elf and you say, oh, you wake up with no memory of how you got here, you're going to need to be invoking some very powerful beings who can basically supersede normal sleeping magic, or something else like a drug or being knocked unconscious or something like that. So that's my general tip for I like the premise, but you definitely do want to have those details fleshed out. I will now go through a couple of things that I've thought of that, since reading your question, I have put together a couple options that you could use to build off of if you wanted to for your campaign. So let's go through those, and I will pitch each one of them to you like I was pitching you a Hollywood movie idea, and you can take it and run with it in whatever direction you want, or you can say none of those are good and I want to make up my own thing. But hopefully there'll be something in here that can spark your imagination and the imagination of other DMs who might be listening into an interesting, a new story idea that they haven't seen before. Our first one. An ancient copper dragon has its hoard under a mountain. This ancient copper dragon enjoys, like all copper dragons, jokes. It has a sense of humor, but this copper dragon specifically enjoys stories. Heroic stories, funny stories, stories of tragedy, stories of comedy. And it hoards stories like gold. Copper dragons often, it mentions in the monster manual, which I would recommend if you're going to run a copper dragon, looking at their entry in the monster manual. That's a pretty basic starting point. It mentions in there that they will often tend towards bards, that they have a specific interest in bards because of their wit and their storytelling and their songs, and that they will often keep a bard almost as a treasure in their hoard. Let's say, though, for this circumstance, this isn't just a generic copper dragon. This is your copper dragon in your world, and this copper dragon searches for the most dashing stories of heroism. It wants to see interesting battles of evil and good, of bravery and cowardice. It wants to see cruelty, and it wants to see mercy. So, it's come up with a plan. This copper dragon keeps an ear to the ground on interesting beings, interesting people. It hears the story of a young fighter looking for a specific item to help heal his ailing father, questing about the land. Here's a story of a wizard who's been studying the magics connected with traveling between the planes and desires to map out the entire multiverse. It hears stories of a young ranger who, when her city was torched by bandits, began on a road for revenge against them. And it thinks these will be our story. It thinks that these would be great characters for a noble story, a heroic tale. It snatches each of them. You'll have to find out exactly how. Like I said, it might depend on the abilities, the races involved here, but it finds a way to manipulate the circumstances so that it has gathered each of these beings together under one roof who it believes will be one day either great heroes or great villains. And half of the fun is that it doesn't know which are which. It wants each of these beings to prove their worth, to show off their heroism, and so it's constructed this arena within its lair. So a really cool thing to do would be to insert a couple of lair descriptions from copper dragons. So I'm going to pull that up. So some of the regional effects of copper dragons, the region containing a legendary copper dragon's lair is warped by the dragon's magic. Magic carvings of the dragon's smiling visage can be seen worked into stone and objects within 6 miles of the dragon's lair. Tiny beasts, such as rodents and birds that are normally unable to speak, gain the magical ability to speak and understand Draconic while within 1 mile of the dragon's lair. These creatures speak well of the dragon, but can't divulge its whereabouts. Intelligent creatures within 1 mile of the dragon's lair are prone to fits of giggling. Even serious matters suddenly seem amusing. So what I would do is I would begin working those in from the very beginning. In the cells where they are, there are stones that seem to be natural but have a face worked into them. You would think someone may have carved them, but upon inspection, it seems almost like the stones are growing this way. A dragon's face. A rat comes in and out of the cell of one of the characters, and as it leaves, it whispers to them, Drogal Nikashti, which is best of luck to you in Draconic, if anyone happens to speak it in the party. These kind of little details will immediately inspire some interest in the party, because something is going on. As they are led to the arena, and they have the unique keys around their neck, it's possible that the Copper Dragon has given them each a key to another person's shackles, so that they each have the opportunity to free another but not themselves. And it uses this to suss out which are the heroes and which are the villains, which will be selfish and which will be charitable, which will go out of their way to try and save the others, and which will try to kill all the others and claim the key for themselves. You'll want to, of course, know your party, know your group, know your players. If you've got a player who sometimes struggles with saying, oh, it's what my character would do, and being a bit troublesome with your other party members, maybe that's not the best idea. But if everybody works together well and has a trusting relationship, this can be a really good opportunity to bring out some of your alignment choices, some of your character background, your bonds, your flaws can come to the forefront, and we can see all of those smashing against each other. What I would do for this circumstance is I would have 2 or 3, maybe, depending on the size of the party, it would change, but other NPC characters who have been brought here as well. And if your party tends toward good, those characters are evil characters, some of which less convincingly hiding it, some of which are more convincingly hiding it, and that might be interesting to have that come out later on, as they maybe betray someone when they had teamed up and were taking shelter together behind a column. But the NPCs, it will be a fight amongst each other that someone starts. It's possible that the players start it, it's possible that the NPCs start it. If somebody's able to talk everyone down, and if there's enough politicking going on, enough charisma checks are being made, things are going well, and you're really working yourself into a corner of how am I going to immediately turn this into a fight without making it seem like I had one of the characters ignore being persuaded or something like that, I would say that the Copper Dragon starts becoming bored and decides to add a little spice to the party and inserts a monster of some kind that you feel fits the dynamics of the group, and that allows some change to happen within the social dynamics. With the introduction of something external, you can say, when faced with this new threat, one of the others says, never mind, I can't risk my life for yours. I'm turning against you all. I just need my key to get out. Give it to me. I think that would create an interesting dynamic to start off with, where you feel like your bonds have truly been forged in fire in the heat of battle. You'll have to find some ways to make it work. Something like that the keys only work if given with selfless intent, or if their wearer is killed. I don't know. You can find out those things, work those out yourself. But this concept of a Copper Dragon who, behind the scenes, is sort of becoming the benefactor of your party because it believes they will make for good stories, whether positive or negative, I think would be an interesting direction to go that I haven't seen before. But I love Copper Dragons, and I use them as often as I can because they are the best dragon. Don't at me. Second pitch. All right. In our second pitch, instead of relying on magic, we're going to be relying on some good old-fashioned knockout and drug up, and we're going somewhere interesting. For this one, you would want to preface to your party. All of you, wherever you were, some of you together, some of you apart, whatever the relationships of the party were before the story begins, are traveling through a specific forest. You're traveling through there for your own reasons. You each have your own goal in mind. And you each have stopped to make camp for the night as you progress. This is a forest that is known to be very dense in parts, and some whisper that if you stay too long, there can be a risk of contact with fey creatures. During the night, each of you is overpowered, is drugged, is knocked out, and dragged by disguised or mysterious creatures into the deeper, darker parts of the wood. Ever deeper, ever denser, until suddenly it doesn't look quite like the same wood anymore. Suddenly the forest doesn't look like it should belong in the world that you are familiar with. You have been taken to the Feywild. I think that the Feywild is a fantastic opportunity to get some magic into your game really early on, but without stranding your party on like the plane of fire or something, and as they all burn to death. They are brought, each of these members, each of these characters, those who trespassed in the woods of the Fey, before the Seelie Court, or the Unseelie Court, whichever you would prefer. And they are told that to win their freedom, they will have to fight in the arena. They will have to prove their worth against legendary monsters. They are allowed to work together, but as they don't know each other, some of them may be a little bit hesitant of this, whereas others may desire for, meat shields that they can put in front of themselves. For this, I want you all to cast your minds to a certain movie. This movie being, I believe the title was Marvel Studios Presents Thor 3, this time it's a Ragnarok. And there was a world that was led by a certain famous actor playing a role within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Jeff Goldblum. If there's ever someone who is a Fey being in real life, it's Jeff Goldblum. We know it. We all know it. Our suspicions are confirmed. I'm telling you, I've seen him in the dark woods making pacts. No one knows his true name. Jeff Goldblum is just his Screen Actors Guild name. His true name remains unspoken because, of course, that would give us power over him, and he knows this and would never give it to us. The Duke or whatever you're using of the Seelie Court, your main point of contact for this arena, it's gotta be a Jeff Goldblum. You've gotta go for it. It's gotta be a Goldblum, and you've gotta Goldblum yourself out as hard as possible. I would suggest The Fly. I would suggest the Jurassic Parks. I mean, go through his work. Find those little Jeff Goldblum bits. I would suggest just watching interviews he's been in on actual, late night shows and things, because it's not an act. He just is that all of the time. And so, trapped on this foreign world, having to fight to claim their freedom as champions of the arena from this Grand Master, Jeff Goldblum of the Seelie Court, I think would be a great premise to start off a campaign. You can immediately have it go back to the normal realm, but it would be interesting to have them stay a bit in the Feywild, or maybe be tricked out of their way home. Even though they technically won, they still have to do something for the Grand Master of the Seelie Court, or what have you. They have to go find a way to claim a certain magic item that the Queen desires. I think this would be a great start to a campaign. A lot of times people are hesitant to start off a campaign first thing with an interplanar experience, but I think it's a great way to remind your players that there is magic, there is something greater in this world, and it's a big breath of fresh air after they've had 1,000 taverns with bandits outside. Jeff Goldblum, whatever you name that character, will, I almost guarantee, be one of the favorite NPCs of your party. All right, our third and final pitch. I'm not sure if I'll do 3 pitches every episode going forward, but for this one I had 3 pitches that I thought each were interesting and worth thinking about. For this pitch, I really latched onto the bit where you said that they each have a unique key around their neck. I was wondering what that key could be used for. And I don't know why, but this came to my mind, so I'll pitch it to you now. Your characters wake up. They're in their cell, ringing in their minds the voice that says, "The time has come. Enter the arena." The portal appears in the wall of each of their cells. They all show up in the arena, and before each of them is a chest that matches the key around their neck. As they insert the key into their chest and open it, they each find a unique magic weapon of some kind. One, a great sword with a gold pommel, a long silver shining blade. Another, a trident with etched engravings of waves and sea life all along its handle. Another, a bow that hums ever so slightly if you hold the string near your ear. And the interesting thing, as each character acquires this magic weapon, is that each of them speak. The character that lifts the great sword hears a voice echoing, "Chosen champion, behold, I am Excalibur, and you shall wield me as we bring holy justice to this world." The ranger, as they pull the bowstring back, hears a whisper, "My name is Swift Death, and I bring such to your enemies." But the thing is, these aren't in their heads, these are happening. And as soon as Swift Death finishes, Excalibur exclaims, "Really, you're going with the whisper thing, huh? That's not try hard at all, very edgy." And Swift Death,
"Oh yes, sure, and your divine justice, that's not played out at all. Your champion looks like he can barely even lift you. Good luck, John."
So these weapons, they all have problems with each other, and they are each looking for a champion who can wield them, who can release them from the layer that they are trapped within. This vault, this extraplanar space that each of these players has been sucked to, is a place where across time and space they can try to find new champions who might wield them and take them back to the mortal realm. But only the winner of the battle gets to keep their sentient weapon. As the fight concludes, I would say allow them to kill each other, but don't worry about it. As the fight concludes, the sentient weapon, who is the champion, exclaims, "Ha! In your faces, I told you, my champion did it. I'm the best. You're all the worst. Absolutely get owned, get destroyed. I'm all praise me, glorious Black Razor," or whatever, maybe don't use Black Razor, but, and all of the other weapons go, "All right, yeah," and you just start hearing applause from each of the treasure chests. "All right, well, okay, well, I guess you get to go this time." And as this applause happens, all of those who were slain in the battle, a glowing light emanates from them, and they are raised from the dead as they are brought back. And the weapons, each to their champions who had wielded them, say, "All right, well, it was a good try. We appreciate your effort, but it looks like it's just not going to work out for us. Our people will call your people. Maybe we'll see, where this goes. Maybe you can, maybe if we need another chance in the future, we'll give you a call. But honestly, I wouldn't wait around for it." And they're sent back. They're sent back to the mortal realm. And one has claimed their unique weapon, and that unique weapon drives the campaign moving forward. That unique weapon has a goal, has a quest, and it is your party's opportunity to fulfill it. Or just go sell it or something. I mean, they don't have to keep it. This could be either the silliest, most ridiculous thing that is lighthearted and breezy and doesn't mean anything in the long run, and it's just a fun, weird way to open up a really comedic, lighthearted campaign. Or if your characters are really into this idea, you could even have it unfold that there is a greater story going on here, that there is maybe an evil sentient weapon who captured and sealed all those weapons away at the dawn of time, and you have to go defeat it in order to unleash the other weapons. Or each one is bound by a specific seal, so as you go and break the seals, another character gets the weapon that had chosen them. I think there's a lot to move from there, and I think that there could be some really interesting options going forward. with how to characterize these weapons and the world that they obviously come from, the world that they were made in. Those are my 3 ideas. Those are where I would go with this. I think that those are not your average bandits burned down the town we started from. Now, some might argue, Thomas the Human Bard, those don't sound like level 1 adventures. And I'd say, not with that attitude, they don't. Anything can be a level 1 adventure if you plan for it correctly. Believe in yourself as a DM. Make it creative. Find a different way to go about it than just throwing goblins and kobolds and bandits at your party. Maybe you're right and they can't defeat any creatures actually found in the Feywild, and that's too dangerous of a place for them to be in. But maybe they don't have to. Maybe something else is going on there. Maybe there are creatures invading the Feywild. Maybe there are retextured creatures from the Monster Manual that are the correct challenge rating for the party, but feel more appropriate for the Feywild. It's your world. Do what you want with it. Feel free to get as weird and as creative as you can, because that's what I love about D&D. And that's going to be the theme of the show going forward, is that D&D is what you make of it. You can play just like in Greyhawk, in Dragonlance, in the Forgotten Realms, and that's awesome. And I think those are really cool games. I think following those very strict and specific worlds is very compelling. Those are well written and well fleshed out places. But I think that if you've never tried making up a story kind of just off the cuff and going from there, then you've never really lived, my friends. I encourage you all to try something new this week in your D&D game. Put something weird in that no one's ever seen before. Don't try and overthink everything. Everything doesn't have to be a brand new experience no one's ever had before, because everyone's done something. Everything's been done. But that doesn't mean it's been done to death, like bandits that have burned down your town have been. So, feel free to shake it up. With that, we're going to wrap up the show. Thank you for listening to Inspiration. I have been your host, Thomas the Human Bard, and I'm going to close out the episode with a word from our sponsor, which this week our sponsor is Dice. Not the company, the objects. Dice. Don't eat them. Don't do it. Come on. Don't do it. Put it down. No, take it out of your mouth. Put that down. No, hey, get that out of your... Thanks so much for listening. If you have suggestions for the next episode of Inspiration, send them to us at thecopperfoxinn@gmail.com or tweet them to us at thecopperfoxinn on Twitter. If you email them to us, put in the subject line Inspiration. Thanks so much. Give us a like down below and don't forget to subscribe. Comment below with your ideas and your story pitches. I'll read through those and I'll see what you guys come up with, because I always love reading what your thoughts are and finding new and creative ways to change up my game as well. Until next time, keep on adventuring.